Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about solving linear equations with variables on both sides. And the learning target is that you will be able to solve multi-step equations using algebraic properties. Okay, so the first step is that you are going to use the distributive property to remove any grouping symbols. Next step is that you are going to simplify the expression on each side of the equation. So that means combining like terms. Our next step is that you are going to use properties of equality to collect the variable terms on one side of the equation and the constant terms on the other side. So that's referring to having all terms with x or any of the variables moved to one side of the equation and leaving all the numbers on the other side. Our fourth step is that you are going to use properties of equality to solve for the variable. And finally, our last step is going to be that you need to check your solution. And then when you do check it, you want to use the original equation. Okay, so let's do some examples together. This first one that I have, our step one says that we would use the distributive property, but we don't need to use the distributive property in this case. And then we would have to simplify the expression on each side. This one is already simplified on both sides. We can't combine any like terms on this side or on this side. So then the next step is that we're going to use the properties to collect the variable terms. So in order to collect the variable terms, what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 2b from the right side and subtract 2b from the left. And when I do, the 2b over here cancel out, and I'm left with 3b equals -9. Then the next thing I'm going to do is divide by 3 so that I'm left with just b, and divide by 3 on this side. These 3's cancel out. I'm left with b equals -3. Okay, so here's example number 2. When I first look at this, the first thing I want to do is get all the variables to the same side. So in order to do that, I'm going to subtract 2m from both sides. And when I do that, the 2m cancel out, and I'm left with -6m plus 3 equals -9. Then I want to combine, I want to bring the 3 over, so I subtract 3. That way the +3 and the -3, they cancel out, and I'm left with -6m equals -12. Now the next thing I want to do is get the m alone, and so I'm going to divide by -6. I can't just divide by 6 because then I'd be left with a negative still. So I divide by -6 and divide by -6, and I'm left, those -6's cancel out, and I'm left with m equals 2, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. All right, so then for example number 3, when I first look at it, the first thing that comes to mind is that I need to use the distributive property because I see those parentheses. So I'm going to distribute the 2 to the m and the 2 to the 3, and I get 2m plus 6 equals m plus 3m. Now over on the right side, we have like terms. We have a 3m and an m. And so when I add those two together, I get 4m. And then equals 2m plus 6. Now what I want to do is I want to bring the 2m over so that I'm left with just the 6 on that side, and the m's are then together. So I subtract 2m and subtract 2m. The 2m's cancel out because this one's a positive and that's a negative. We get 6 equals 2m. And then in order to get the m by itself, I divide by 2. Those cancel out, and I'm left with m equals 3. Okay, so here's our final example on page 19 of your packet. So looking at this one, again, the first thing that I wanted to do is distribute So I'm going to distribute the negative 8 to the k and the negative 8 to the negative 2, and I get negative 8k plus 16 equals k minus 23. Then what I want to do is I want to bring this k over to the other side. And because it's a positive k, I'm going to subtract k and subtract k. And those cancel each other out. And I have negative 9k plus 16 equals negative 23. Now what I want to do is get just negative 9k on the left. And so I subtract 16, and I'm left with negative 9k equals negative 39. Then what I want to do is get that k alone, so I divide by negative 9, divide by negative 9, they cancel each other out, and k is equal to 39 over 9. Okay, so if you look at the top of page 20, these are the first two problems on that page. What I want you guys to do is pause this video and try and work out these on your own. Alright, so here's the answers and the work behind getting to the answers. And as you can see in the second one, we got z equals z. And don't worry about that too much right now. We're going to get into that and what that's called in the coming up videos. Okay, so looking at problem number 3, it says to find the length of a rectangle where the length is 5 units more than the width and the perimeter is 9 times the width. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a picture. This. And I'm going to say that this is the width, which means that this is also the width. And it says that the length is 5 units more than the width. And we can represent that by 5 units more than the width. So 5 plus w, or w plus 5. Now the next step in this is that it says that the perimeter is 9 times the width. So I'm going to make an equation, and it's just going to be the perimeter equals 9w, because it says 9 times the width. The next thing is, if I look at our picture and I gave you that, how do you find the perimeter? You add up all the sides. So the perimeter is also going to be equal to 5 plus w, and I got that from right here, plus w, plus another 5 plus w, plus the last w. And then when we simplify that equation and combine like terms, we get p equals 10 plus 4w. Now I know that the perimeter is equal to this, and the perimeter is also equal to this, so that means I can just set these two equations equal to each other. So I have 9w from up here is equal to 10 plus 4w. Now we know how to solve this. So we're going to subtract 4w, and we are left with 5w equals 10. So I put x, w equals 10, and then we divide by 5. They cancel out, and we're left with w equals 2. Okay, so we found that w equals 2, and I'm going to draw a picture one more time. W. Okay, but the question was asking, find the length of the rectangle, and this is what represents our length. So we have to remember to always take our answer and plug it back into the equation. So the length is equal to w plus 5. And we know that w is 2, so the length is equal to 2 plus 5. The length is equal to 7. And that's your final answer. Okay, so then looking at our last problem of the day, it says a flower garden has the shape shown. The diameter of the outer circle is 3 times the diameter of the inner circle. So if this was our our circle, it's saying that from here to here, this whole length is 3x. And then it says this right here inside is just x. Then it says the lengths of the walkways are 8 feet long. What is the diameter of the inner circle? So the walkways are right here, from here to here. And they're saying that this is 8 and that this one is also 8. So now what we need to do is set up our equation and then solve for it. So we can set up this equation because we know that the entire length is 3x. So 3x is equal to, and then what we have inside, we have the 8 plus this x plus the last 8. And then we need to solve our equation. So we have 3x, we combine like terms, 8 plus 8 is 16 plus x, and then we're going to subtract our x. We get 2x equals 16, and then we divide by 2, and we get x is equal to 8. Okay, so then we look at our question. It says, what is the diameter of the inner circle? And our inner circle was x, and we just found that x is equal to 8, so the diameter is 8 feet. Okay, that's all for today. I don't want you guys to finish or fill in that box at the bottom of page 20.